And we are live. Hello everyone. It's really an honor to be here hosting the Q&A live session today here at the Addictive Brain channel. So hello everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Martijn Peters. I'm a scientist from Belgium and currently I'm a science communication officer at Hasselt University. Some of you might already know me from my Instagram channel at Stories of a Life Science. So somebody already joined. I will wave to you guys handily because I put my camera phone here in a nice setup in order to not tilt it over or anything during the live session. So welcome for joining us. So as I said before, my name is Martijn. I'm from Belgium. I'm a scientist and currently I am a science communication officer at Hasselt University. So what does that mean? I'm basically in charge of everything that goes outside science news-wise, but also things like science events. I do coaching, training for scientists and stuff like that. Now, education-wise, I'm actually just a scientist like everyone, like all the other scientists, as to say so. Originally, I did a bachelor in biomedical sciences, so in life sciences, and then my master was a specialization master in bioelectronics and nanotechnology. So during my master thesis, I developed biomedical nanotechnology for biomedical research, so studying of brain diseases as well as the study of drug delivery and things like that. And then I did a PhD. So for 4 years, I did a PhD during which I developed fluorescent, so tiny light bulbs, fluorescent nanoparticles to study brain diseases, more specifically multiple sclerosis. But during my PhD, I discovered something new, science communication, as to say so. My first time that I did science communication was at a comedy competition. So we had to combine comedy with science. I tried to explain my PhD research as going to the club and trying to score a date, as to say so. It was really fun. I won the competition, so I felt really honored and it kind of steamrolled then. So I went full berserk into science communication. I didn't look back anymore. And after my PhD, I was fortunate and lucky enough to start a career in science communication. Thank you very much. I thought it was great as well. I was nervous as heck. It was my first time that I did something. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking, but it was really fun. I really also enjoyed all the training session with the other researchers. We really had a lot of fun combining comedy because we were trained by a real comedian with science. I did a few other competitions afterwards, like the Science Battle, which is a competition organized by kids and for kids. So that was really fun to do. Basically because kids are amazing. I mean, a kid will never lie to you. If you know you're doing science communication right when a kid enjoys listening to you, because they will not pretend like they are paying attention to you. If you do not at all entertain them, they will not pay attention. So yeah, that can be unfortunate sometimes for some people, but I really enjoyed it. It was fun interacting with these kids. And afterwards, if little kids come to you and they say, I want to become a scientist, oh man, that's such a great feeling. Then you know what you're doing science communication for. I had way more fun, to be honest, at this science communication competition with these kids than at any conference I ever presented for. I presented at conferences for 500 people. Well, these 100 kids I presented for were way more enthusiastic than these other people. So hello to everyone who is joining now. I see new people have joined. So hello, welcome to the Q&A live stream. So basically afterwards I rolled into social media for science communication. So I took a couple of workshops on public speaking and then a workshop on social media. Back then in the day, Twitter was on the rise. So most of the scientists started to use Twitter. Back then it wasn't as big as it is now. And I also started to use Twitter, and I really enjoyed it. But then, 1 year ago, I discovered Instagram. And Instagram back then was really new, and I talked about it with a lot of scientists, and a lot of scientists were skeptical about using Instagram, which we're on now, for science communication. But I really enjoyed making videos and taking photographs and stuff like that, and combining the visual creative aspects with science communication. And this was really something that I started doing, and in less than a year I went up by 10,000 followers. I mean, so far it has been an amazing journey, and I'm really grateful for everyone following me on Instagram. So that's a bit what my journey was up until my PhD, and then I became a science communication officer. So I started doing science communication as a profession. So basically what I do on a day-to-day basis, you can see on my Instagram channel @stories of a scientist, but to give it to you in a nutshell, so I created a new platform, a digital platform called Insight, where we showcase all aspects of science. So not just scientific findings, but also who are scientists, what drives them, what are they passionate about, who are they beside their science work, and stuff like that. Beside that, I also give social media workshops to our scientists. I organize events. For example, last month we did 2 science pubs, so 1 science pub for Pint of Science. This was an international event, so some of you might have joined that. And then there was a science pub organized together with New Scientist Live. So that's how I got into science communication and how I became a science communicator as a profession. And that's what I want to talk about with you guys here today. So if you have questions about science communication, feel free to ask them during the Q&A. So I already got some questions from you, both through my own channel as well as here the Addictive Brain Live channel. So let's start, for example, with one of the questions that we got. So the first question that I got was mainly about my journey as a scientist. Someone asked, is it really necessary to do a master's in order to get a PhD? Well, here in Belgium it is. So you need to have a master's degree in order to be able to do a PhD, and you need to have a certain percentage on your master's. So most of the time, especially when you go for a governmental scholarship, you have to be among the most excellent of students. So for example, I had summa cum laude on my master's degree, which of course helped me get a governmental grant. So that's really important. So indeed, a master's degree is necessary to get a PhD. But I believe internationally, correct me if I'm wrong, or you can weigh into the discussion here about that. It's not always necessary, if I'm correct. So you can skip degrees if I'm correct. But I could be wrong. Who knows? I know what's the case here in Belgium. I do not know what is the case in every other country, has to say so. Another question that I got is, how can we improve engagement with the general public? That's kind of the question that every science communicator is asking themselves. So how can we improve engagement? I can maybe combine this with the next question that I got, and it's how can we improve science communication, for example, to skeptical people, like people who are anti-vaccines or climate deniers and stuff like that. Because I think my answer is going to tie back to both of these. I think one of the most important ways to have engagement with people is to have a dialogue, a conversation. Because most of the time what we do is we are kind of broadcasting, like media, We just pump out our content and rarely are we interacting. And that's why I think that Instagram, for example, is a really, really nice platform to do science communication, because a lot of the people here that I see doing communication about their science topics here on Instagram interact a lot with their audience and really ask their audience questions and stuff like that. So I really think that having conversations with people is one of the most important thing to get engagement going with non-scientists, because we have kind of forgotten also in this age how to have a conversation. So most of the time we're on a computer, we are on our cell phones, we are living digitally, and we are not having conversations that often anymore as we used to have. And there's kind of value in having a conversation face to face with people, because when you have a conversation, you can really get to understand the viewpoint of someone else, and they can understand your viewpoint, and you can work to get a certain consensus. This is, for example, very important when you are talking to people who are climate deniers or anti-vaxxers. The thing that I dread the most, which I see happen often, is people just going to comment, for example, on Twitter or something like that. And Twitter is the ideal place to sprout commentaries at each other or vague statements. People who start saying just basically, yeah, you're wrong, everything that you say is wrong, the fact that you're an anti-vacciner, you should go to hell, stuff like that. You really think if somebody walks up to you on the street and starts talking to you like that, you'd say, okay, well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're completely right. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to take my kid and I'm going to walk now to the doctor and get a vaccine. I mean, there's no way in hell that is happening. So, but when you have a conversation and you search for a mutual point with somebody, then you can make a true connection, and then you can make change. Because often people who are climate deniers, anti-vaxxer and stuff like that, they often are also ingrained into a belief system. And it's really difficult because people tie their identity with belief systems. And once you attack their belief system, you attack their identity. They cannot let go of one without letting go of the other. So by getting to know them and making connection, you can detach the two. And they can see like, okay, my identity is not coupled with this belief system. And often these belief systems are also tied into fear, for example. They are afraid that something... These are sometimes really parents that are afraid that something bad might happen to their child. I mean, I don't have to say it to anyone who is a parent and who is viewing this now, that you want the best for your kid. I mean, you would do everything probably for your child. And these parents are just the same. So just throwing stuff at them and saying you're wrong, you're bad at what you're doing, you're a bad parent, that's not going to help communicating your scientific point towards them, as you say. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. So you might see me do that from time to time, as we have quite some time to go. So if you have a question, just throw it in here in the viewing box. So if you have a question about science communication, something that you want to know, feel free to throw it in and I will be happy to answer. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to provide value to all of you. I'm here to serve you today. That's my goal here with this Q&A. So one other question is, how can you engage more with your audience as a science communicator? One of the basic things that I teach my students is always to connect with your audience on specific levels. So for example, if you give a presentation, or if you are posting a post here on Instagram, most of the time one thing that helps is an attention getter. So for example, with a presentation, that could be an anecdote, which is something very personal, which breaks the ice. It can be a fancy story, something that people saw in the news, which they can connect with. So something that draws people into the story. With Instagram, for example, this can be a cool video or a nicely, how do I have to say this, choreographed picture where you are in a certain pose with some lab equipment and stuff like that. So that's an attention getter. So once you draw them in, you have to keep them there. So you have to keep them entertained at a continuous basis. And in order to do that, and this is one of the most important things as a science communicator, it is know your audience. Whenever you're going to do science communication, it doesn't matter which format, you need to know who you are communicating with. Is it other scientists? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it kids? Is it adults? If it's our adults, what type of adults? Are they of a certain political group? Are they of a certain belief system? Once you understand your audience, you can make true connections. Never, never ever forget it. If there's a one message that I can have you take home today, it is know your audience. And this is often something that I see a lot of people complain here about on Instagram. Well, I'm not growing any followers, people are not interacting with me, and I say like, okay, yeah, so what are you doing? Well, yeah, I've been posting the same posts like this in this way, and I see that with other people this work, and I produce this content, and then I often also have the question like, okay, yeah, but is your audience waiting for that content? Do you know who your audience is? Have you ever interacted with these people? Have you ever talked with them, asked them questions? And then they're like, okay, yeah, no, I didn't do that. I just looked at another person's profile and I just copy pasted that, and yeah, that never works. Also, one of the things that ties into that, which is also very important when you want to have a good engagement as a science communicator, is authenticity. If you're not authentic, if you're not just who you are, if you're pretending to be someone, if you are faking it until you make it, you will never make it. Believe me. There are people who can fake it until they make it. They get lots of followers by doing something in a specific way, and then they get a burnout. Because halfway they reach their targets, they're happy, and then they say like, okay, but this isn't me and I have to keep going at this pace of doing science communication or just being an influencer on Instagram in general, and they're screwed. They're screwed big time because there's no way your mental health can do this. There is no way whatsoever that you can do this. So one of the advices that I would do is be authentic. Find your voice and keep to it. And even if there are only 50 people following you because you are presenting your science in a certain way, those 50 people are worth more than 1,000 people who would otherwise be following you, because those 50 people really like you for being you and the way that you present science. I mean, just imagine if you would sit in a room and 200 people would be listening to you on a daily basis. You would be stoked. I mean, most scientists on a conference, if they have 200 people coming specifically to watch them and really watch them in an engaged way, they would be stoked. And then people are complaining, well, I have only 1,200 followers. And then I'm like, yeah, 1,200 people who are super engaged with you, who love watching your content. Those 1,200 people are worth it to do what you do on a daily basis. I think authenticity is one, as a science communicator, that is also that is something that is really underestimated. So again, for the people who have joined now, feel free to ask questions about science communication. Just type them out here in the comment box. Just ask a question about science communication. If it's public speaking, if it is doing science communication over social media, etc., etc. So the addictive photographer poses a really nice conundrum, as to say so: quality over quantity. This is a difficult one. This is a really difficult one. Based on algorithms, or at least it used to be like that, people would say quantity over quality. In the sense that, but let me explain, in the fact that you need to pump out content. We know that the algorithm favors people who produce more content. That being said, that content needs to be of a certain quality. By that I don't mean that all your videos should be in 4K video, for example, should be edited, color graded, subtitled, etc., etc., etc. No. The quality, I mean by that authenticity and thinking about your science and stuff like that. So you need to produce a lot of content. That's what the algorithm wants. Coming from someone who has worked a lot on social media as a science communicator over the past years, I would say always choose quality over quantity. And quality is not only quality of posts, but also quality of your mental health. Let me stress this so much. Social media can really be a burden if you don't do it right. Please, everyone here, be careful for your mental health. Work at your own time, at your own pace. If you're not feeling like posting an Instagram post today, sure, the Instagram algorithm will punish you for that. Who cares? Seriously, who cares that 200, that might be over-exaggerated, but that 50 people might, 50 people less might see your post through a hashtag that you used in your post. No one cares for that. Post at your own pace, at your own time. When you do that, your post will always be quality, and sometimes the quantity can be high of post. If you feel energized, creative, this is a good week, I will post videos, I will post stories, I will post pictures, you will get lots of engagement, you will have quality content, it's good, it's high quantity. You will see the algorithm will boost your engagement. It's not that high anymore as it used to be, but it will still do so. While, for example, if you feel less like it, don't do it. Just take your time, get your mind to rest, and that's it. Maybe also one important tip that I can give you if we are talking about engagement, because most of the time when people are talking about quality over quantity and creating engagement through doing a lot of posts or less posts and stuff like that, the Instagram algorithm has changed. And one thing that has become really important is engagement, actually. The more you are engaging with people, the higher your engagement will become. What I mean by that, it doesn't work anymore to just scroll down your feed and double tap on every picture that you see like a mindless fool, double tapping, so that Instagram might think like, oh, he's engaging a lot with other people, or she is engaging a lot. No, what works now is actually having genuine engagement with people. So posting comments on people picture, and by this I mean genuine comments, and not like all these influencers who are mass following people and mass commenting. Like I get 5 comments a day like great pic, or amazing picture, or great what you do, or some comment that has nothing to do at all with the picture. Yeah, fuck those people, as to say so. That's like trying to hack the Instagram algorithm. They get they get followers, and all those followers are fake as fuck. They really have very low engagement if you go onto tools like Hype Auditor and stuff like that. So yeah, no, don't do that. Don't do that. So genuine engagement with friends and as you say, so because Instagram kind of recognizes, okay, these people have general interactions as if they were friends. So for example, I also noticed that if you have private messages with people, these people, their post will end up higher on your feed when they post. So they recognize it. Oh, for example, Martin communicated a lot over private message with this person. He probably has a good relationship with that person. We're going to show their post to them. And that's how you create more engagement. Also, what I want to say here, before I forget in my train of thought, is what is important with engagement or getting good engagement as a science communicator here on Instagram is having an authentic audience. I talked about it a while back. So authenticity is really something that is valuable because you create an authentic audience, people who really follow you because of you. And why is that important? So what does Instagram do? When I post a picture or a video, Instagram shows this to a certain percentage of my followers. And then these followers will interact, they will comment, they will like, for example, if you post a video, they will also look at view time. So how long do these followers look at the video? Do they quit after 30 seconds or do they really watch, for example, a 7-minute video from back to end? And when Instagram sees like, oh, there is really good engagement, and you will have really good engagement if your audience is authentic and likes your content, they will show it to the next percentage of your viewers, and so on and so on and so on. And that's how you get better engagement. So if you have a lot of people that follow you because you follow or because you just randomly comment on people's pictures and they just follow you because they think you will follow them back and you don't really have an engagement, they will see your picture, they won't like it, they won't engage with it. Instagram will say like, okay, this content is not that interesting for Martin's followers, for example. We will not show it to much more people. And that's a problem that you can have. So that being said, I also saw, can I scroll? I can scroll here. Ideal. Woohoo! What is considered as success in biology? Is this a science communication based question? Like what type of science communication is seen as a success in biology, or just being a scientist in general? If the Flying Sikh can elaborate on that maybe a bit, I can answer that question better. Let's see if there are also other questions. So for the people who are joining, my name is Martin. I'm a science communication officer at Hasselt University. So I'm a professional science communicator. But before that, I was just a normal everyday scientist. I got a PhD in biomedical sciences, and then I became a professional science communicator at my university. So I basically coach scientists. I do science communication myself on my personal channels, like at Stories of a Scientist. I organize events, I write articles and stuff like that. We communicate with the media, make videos, etc., etc. So that's what I do for a living. So if you have any questions about science communication, feel free to ask them in the comments down below. So drop them in here and I will be more than happy to answer them, because I always think like if I can provide some value to every one of you by answering one of your questions, that would be great. So there is a little mark here. Okay, this is also a nice question from Sim Nuggets. What or who inspired you to go to where you are now? If we are talking about who, and we are talking about me as a scientist, then I would have to go way back, so more than 20 years ago. Back when I was a little kid, and that would be my grandfather. So my grandfather, he was a forester, a forest keeper, so he protected the forest against bad people, as you say so. And when I was a little kid, my parents would often drop me off during the summer holiday to go walk with my grandfather, or to go fishing, for example. And when I was on this walk with my grandfather, he would teach me everything he ever knew about the animals, the plants, and he really got me, he ignited a kind of spark for science inside of me. So that's how I got into science. So my grandfather, he was kind of my inspiration to become a scientist. As of science communication, well, there are of course really great science communicators. We talk about people like Carl Sagan. They are of course an inspiration, but I got kind of more inspired to do science communication by, for example, as I told way earlier in the live stream, by these kids who really come up to you and say like, okay, because of your presentation today, I want to become a scientist. So these type of moments, these type of points in time really pushed me into becoming a science communicator. So a next question that I see here, tell us about your curriculum vitae. Of course, you can always go check my LinkedIn page for a really detailed one. But if we are going to look at my curriculum vitae, so for my degrees, I did a bachelor, as I said, in biomedical sciences. Then I did a master's in bioelectronics and nanotechnology, which I graduated in summa cum laude. Then I did a PhD for 4 years. That was 5 years ago, so I started it. That's a PhD in biomedical sciences, or more generally in sciences, where I developed fluorescent nanoparticles for brain research, more specifically for multiple sclerosis, so to get over the blood-brain barrier. During my PhD, I also did a couple of other stuff. So one of the things I did, I got a postgraduate in business management. So this was an education of 1 year where I had to go learn about things like bookkeeping, management, human resources, law and stuff like that, how to become an entrepreneur, every Friday and Saturday for 1 year long. And during that same year, I also became a lead organizer of TEDx U Hasselt. So we started our own TEDx conference at Hasselt University. It was a really exciting period. It was also a really heavy period. Combining a PhD with a postgraduate and being a lead organizer, yeah, I would not recommend doing that. Although it was a great experience, it was kind of a lot. During that time, I also did a couple of science competitions, science communication competitions. That was because I really liked doing public speaking, and I was, if I can say that myself, I was rather good at it. So I did things like that. So I won 2 competitions, so the science battle and the science slam, which was the comedy competition that I told you earlier about. So that was something that I also did in those years. And then, like I said, I went really into social media. So I started making videos on YouTube. I started tweeting on Twitter about my research specifically. So in the beginning, I really talked a lot about nanotechnology, biomedical research, also a bit about science communication. But once I became a science communication officer, I really transferred fully to talking about science communication. So that's also what I did. And then during these years, I also won a couple of prestigious awards here in Belgium with regard to science communication. So the year prize in science communication of the Royal Institutes for Science and Arts. I was the first person who won it 2 years in a row. So that all helped really a lot to create a position of science communication officer at my university. So this is basically kind of my curriculum vitae over the years. So I really did a lot of training. So what I would advise you if you want to become a science communicator is practice, practice, practice. So try a lot of different things. I did really a lot of workshops, from public speaking to writing to drawing to social media. And I really picked those that I enjoyed the most, and I pinpointed down on them, and I really went 100% on them. So that's what I did. So I chose, okay, this is something that I like, and this is also what I would advise you to do. So look for something that you like, and then once you found that, you can pinpoint that and really work on that and expand your knowledge on that. And don't be afraid to try science communication. I mean, I also recently put this on Twitter, but everyone is kind of afraid to be seen as a fool when doing science communication. I mean, as scientists, we hardly get any training whatsoever during our training as a scientist with regards to science communication. That's something I also did with regards to my curriculum vitae. During my PhD, I created a course for the biomedical scientists, the master students, about popular science communication together with a professor. So we've been giving that course for 4 years approximately. So, and we really see improvements with the scientists, because when you do science communication, you also train soft skills that are really vital as a scientist. So we see that these students also win a lot more conference prizes, are way more confident when they have to present something about their research, know much better how to write grants about their research and stuff like that. So for the people who are joining in, hello everyone, I see you. So feel free to ask questions in between. So we see that there are benefits of doing science communication. But as I was saying, don't be afraid to try out science communication. No one starts as an expert. If I look back at presentation and videos of me in the beginning, I said, Martin, what the hell are you doing? Stop doing that. This is so wrong. You're doing everything wrong. But it's okay. I mean, I had to start somewhere. We all have to start somewhere. Only by trying it and doing it a lot and giving it our all, only by doing that can we become experts. And that's something that you have to do as a science communicator. So you can, for example, also look on Twitter and stuff like that. There are a lot of opportunities to write for free on blogs and stuff like that. You can start your own blog. There are also other opportunities. You can, for example, ask at your university if they organize events, if you can work with them as a volunteer, so you can help them organize and learn skills about how to do event organization. You can, for example, also contact your communication department and say like, look, I want to communicate about this type of field, for example, about neuroscience. If you get a call from, for example, a reporter to talk about a neuroscience topic, you can give them my name if you want to, for example. You can also present yourself to be a moderator for conferences and stuff like that, etc., etc., etc. The people who hustle are the people who win. So you have to really, really try to do as much science communication as possible if you want to become a science communicator. That being said, it's also valuable to do this as a scientist. So I've coached in the past years a lot of scientists when it comes to science communication, especially social media. And these were scientists who do not necessarily wanted to become a professional science communicator, but wanted to become better at communicating as a scientist to advance their career into, for example, becoming a professor, to get tenure or stuff like that. And science communication can be really valuable. I coached some scientists. They are now, for example, on the Forbes 30 on the 30 list. There are scientists who went to the HWO who got invited because they were, for example, were present on Twitter. they had a Twitter account. So they really started to communicate about their topic. For example, let's say air pollution or multiple sclerosis. They got picked up by media and stuff like that. They were trained to articulate better about their research, which helped them gain more grants, get more papers, etc., etc., etc. So science communication can really help you as a scientist. So not only if you want to become a science communicator, it can also really help you as a scientist. And if, for example, you want to do social media to help your career, I would always advise you start with Twitter. As a scientist, Twitter is one of the best platforms to start because there are a lot of journalists and stuff like that on there as well. Dear God, it's now quite hot outside. The sun is pouring in here. It's getting quite steamy. I mean, science communication is a hot topic. Anyway, let's see, because I have more also questions from the audience which were sent in front to me. How can we ensure that we aren't just communicating with other scientists, but also with the public? Also for the people joining in. Hello everyone, my name is Martijn Peters and I'm a science communication officer, and I'm here today to answer all your questions about science communication. So if you're joining in and you have a question about science communication, something that you wanted to ask, let it be about public speaking, social media use as a scientist, etc., etc., feel free to throw in the question down below. The more questions, the better, of course. We still have roughly 15 minutes to go, so we're already 45 minutes in. 45 minutes of interesting discussion with some nice questions of you. Also, if you have a question, feel free to ask, but to come back to the question that was asked or that I just read. So how can we ensure that we are communicating with not only with other scientists? This is a point of discussion among science communicators and scientists who communicate about their research on social media. I had a lot of discussions about it on Twitter because it is indeed difficult to pinpoint, are we now communicating in kind of a bubble, an echo chamber to just other scientists who are following us? Yes and no. I will stay with the example of Twitter, for example, because that is an example where you communicate your research as a scientist by yourself. Often, for example, when you would communicate about a finding that you made through the media, chances are pretty high that a lot of people who are not scientists are going to read it in the newspaper or see it on their TV screen. But if we would focus now on Twitter, for example, there have been studies that shown that, okay, for the first 1,000 followers, chances are pretty high that these are all scientists from your field or scientists related to your field that are interested in your research. And that's not a bad thing. One of the first things that I try to pinpoint to scientists who say, okay, I don't want to really become a science communicator, I don't know if social media are valuable, I say, but most of the followers in the beginning are other scientists, and you want to present your research, your papers to other scientists. You want to have more citations, more read, people who want to work together with you on an international global scale. So it can be advantageous. So the first 1,000 people are most of the time other scientists. Once you go over these 1,000 people, then you are going to communicate to a much broader audience. For example, journalists, entrepreneurs, policy makers within that are interested in your field often, and stuff like that. So you will be able to communicate to other people. One of the important things is, of course, to avoid things like using jargon. Don't start using fancy words, because then if people tune in that are not scientists, they might be unable to understand. And also, and this is one of my major hassles with people talking about the general public, non-scientists, etc., etc. It's not because someone is a scientist that they will understand your research if you talk with jargon. It's not even the case if it's a scientist in the same field. the number of conferences I've been to where I watched talks that I didn't understand anything of, and these were talks in my field, in the field of nanotechnology, they're endless. I have no idea why scientists remain to communicate in this way. I mean, I understand. There's a basic need for jargon, for specialized terms. But man, we make it so complicated at times, and then we are wondering why even other scientists can't understand us. I mean, being able to be a good science communicator, being able to communicate well, also translate to communicate to other scientists. So try to communicate as clear as possible, as if you were talking to your non-scientific audience, because it will also benefit you communicating to your scientific audience, which will help you with more interdisciplinary collaborations, for example. So do not underestimate this. I mean, it's not because someone is a scientist that they know. It's also not because someone is not a scientist that they're not skilled in their topic. I know people who are, for example, not a scientist as a profession, but they are really, really knowledgeable about some subject because they're really read into scientific literature. So do not underestimate or overestimate people. Just take a basic level. I will most of the time say high school level of science education, and that's your level at which you want to communicate. I also saw another the addictive photographer with another nice question. So which platform is the best for science communication? That would be the platform that is the most hyped at the moment. That evolves, of course. A while ago, a few years ago, that would be Twitter. I would say go do science communication on Twitter. For the moment, this would be Instagram. Although we are reaching the top level of Instagram. So if you're starting now as a scientist on Instagram, unless you have a very niche, and you should always have a niche, so really don't start communicating about science in general. Start communicating about a really niche topic, for example, nanotechnology, specific neuroscience disease or something like that. Because people always like niches, same for YouTube and stuff like that. So Instagram is a really, really popular platform, but probably the most used platforms these days is things like TikTok and stuff like that. So where the youth are. I have no idea how I would combine dancing on music with science, but I'm sure there are some of you out there who would be amazing at it and who would be really skyrocketing on those platforms. So always try to see what is the next platform that will hype. That is the best platform to go do science communication on. So for the moment, Instagram is still one of the most popular science communication platforms, but there might be others looming on the horizon. We don't know. Also, something that was underestimated a lot previously, but is getting a rise, is LinkedIn for content creation, because most of the time people only use it to make connection, but a lot of people, I see the question, so how about LinkedIn, just rolling in. So indeed, LinkedIn is a really good, like I was just saying, a platform for content creation. Do not underestimate it. A lot also of social media gurus are saying, if you have a company and you're doing business to business or stuff like that, start producing content on LinkedIn. So for example, I would say if you write captions for Instagram, you could also make posts or blog posts of them for LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn, especially from a professional point of view, is the ideal place to connect with other scientists. And there are also a lot of groups on LinkedIn where people are looking for content where they are interested in a certain topic, as to say. So I would say don't underestimate LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a good one, but I would say that the interaction rate is a bit lower on there. So what kind of SciComm projects do you have coming up? That's an interesting question, life of learning. I have a big project coming up, but I really I cannot tell you yet about it. Tune in to my channel because it will be there in one of the coming weeks. But one of the cool things that we've done now, so one of the things that I did over the past year was the Insight platform. It took quite some work to get it streamlined over the whole university and to get everyone on board and to be able to do it in English instead of Dutch. Because that's kind of sometimes a problem, because as a university we are obliged by law to communicate also in Dutch. I had to work my way around that a bit. Another cool project is that we are working together with an artist. So I created together with some people of our university a whole new framework where we're able to work together with an international, a really renowned artist who lives in Belgium. And we're going to do science and art projects together with him. So this will be really cool. And we will, for example, place scientists in his residence and they will work together on a one-on-one basis with him on new projects. So this is a really cool thing. We just finished the paperwork and stuff like that. That really took a while, but there were a lot of administrative details for that, a lot of talks in front to create this. So this is also a nice project. And another cool project that we did over the past year and which has just been launched at our university is that we created together with an alumni an online tool for our researchers to network with each other. So what do we see at our university and also a lot of other universities is that often scientists don't even know the scientists sitting in the lab next to them. Sometimes not even in the lab together with them. So people have no idea who is working at our university, what kind of equipment is available, what kind of topics and expertise we have in house. So that is something that we wanted to do something about. And okay, then you have the question like, are we going to put everyone together on speed dates every now and then? Yeah, okay, might work, might not. Scientists, especially PhD students, postdocs, professors are often really time occupied. So they really don't want to put their time in things that they are not sure are valuable. So what do? We created together with this alumni who is an entrepreneur. He was an informatics student at our university. He is now an entrepreneur. He created a first startup company and now he's doing a second project. And it's basically a network tool where scientists have to register. Only our university scientists can do so because you need to have a university profile so that not other people can get the data of our scientists, of course. And then you have to make a bio in simple terms. What are you working on? And then, for example, you can make icebreakers, so offers and requests. For example, I have knowledge on data privacy. If I can help anyone with them, feel free to reach out to me. Or I can work with a confocal laser scanning microscopy. If you want to do fluorescent imaging of cells and stuff like that, contact me. But they can also make requests. For example, I'm looking for people who are willing to go to help me write a grant proposal because we're looking for partners who will work on this aspect of a grant proposal, etc., etc., etc. And on this basis, people can connect and they get emails and stuff like that, where they, for example, then they get an email and there's a whole algorithm, of course, behind it. It's not just you get a basic email, but the email, so the algorithm search which based on a whole lot of disciplines and fields that we attributed to the scientist. The algorithm searches which icebreakers are most valuable for you as a researcher. So you don't have to go to endless streams like Tinder, swipe till you find the scientist that you want to swipe left or right to. I really don't know which direction you have to swipe to get a scientist or get a date in case of Tinder. That being said, the algorithm searches all the most relevant icebreakers for you. So everything that the algorithm search out for you, will be valuable for you. So these are really requests of people that are looking for your expertise or are people that can provide expertise that can be helpful for you. So this is also a project that we just launched this month, that we worked on. So these were a couple of bigger science communication projects. Of course, there were a lot of small ones in between, but these are the things that we did in the past year, as to say. So these were 3 big projects. So Insight, working together with a world-renowned artist, and the whole intercommunication within the university. So fostering that, as to say. So what are other synonyms for science communication officer? Well, in Dutch is called stafmedewerker wetenschapscommunicatie. What kind of synonyms would I be? A communication manager, but then for a scientific department or a scientific institute. It's kind of a combination between a communication manager, a brand manager, a project manager, so a bit of everything. It's not like I can put my finger on it, like that's the only thing I have to do. So there's a lot of things that you have to do as a science communication officer. This is also more of a new kind of job. There aren't that many science communication officers in Belgium, so I think every university has 1, 2, maybe some have a couple of them, the bigger universities, but it's not that we have a science communication officer in each science institute at a university, for example. So yeah, it's I wouldn't directly know in English what would be other terms that would be would be a good synonym for this, as to say. So are you talking about your PhD? I talked a little bit about my PhD. I'm now a science communication officer, so I do all the science communication, or I take care of all the science communication for our university. But before that, I did a PhD in sciences, so biomedical sciences. I designed fluorescent nanoparticles for brain research. Sure, you can ask me about my PhD. You can feel free to ask whatever you want. So feel free to ask me about my PhD. We have still a couple more minutes left. I have to say this hour really flew by, thanks to all the interaction of you guys. Also the people who sent in front their questions, who are probably now sleeping because they're on the other side of the world. Of course, thank you very much also for your questions. I hope I have answered them, and you will see them some a bit later. So which nanoparticles? You see me leaning forward because I have to see that. Okay, so there's 1 minute and 53 seconds remaining, it says. So really quickly, what type of nanoparticles? I worked with conjugated polymers. Conjugated polymers are polymers with alternating double and single bonds in their chain. So a polymer is a connection of, you can see it as a chain with beads on it. And because they are alternating single and double bonds, they can produce fluorescence. And I converted these polymers into nanoparticles, which were then fluorescents. They had other special chemical groups on their surface, which allows us to attach biological groups on the surface of these nanoparticles, allowing them to go over the blood-brain barrier. So I guess I have to round up here because I have only 1 minute left. Thank you very much. Indeed, for everyone who has missed the live stream, don't worry. They will upload it on all kinds of social media channels. You will be able to view it afterwards. If you have any more questions, always feel free to pass by at my personal channel, at Stories of a Scientist, a point between every word. So at stories.of point of scientist, etc., etc. So again, many thanks to all of you. Thank you for joining. It was a really fun 1 hour. See you next time. Ciao for now.